October 1st, 331 BC, near Gaugamela, Mesopotamia. Imagine standing in the middle of an endless plain. No hills, no walls, no forest, no place to hide. Only dust, heat, and the sound of thousands of men preparing to die. Across the open ground, the Persian Empire has gathered its full strength. 250,000 soldiers stretch across the horizon, cavalry, infantry, chariots, elephants, and commanders drawn from every corner of Asia. To Persia, this is not just another battle. This is the day Alexander is supposed to disappear. At the center of that enormous line sits Darius III, King of Kings, ruler of the greatest empire the world has ever known. To his men, he is not simply a monarch. He is the symbol of Persia itself, the man no army in Asia is supposed to challenge and survive. And facing him is a force that looks almost too small to matter. 47,000 Macedonians, led by a young king only 25 years old, a king who has never lost a battle. Alexander the Great, the Persians outnumber him 5-1. They have cavalry on both flanks. They have scythed chariots ready to carve through infantry. They have war elephants meant to terrify men before the fighting even begins. By every rule of ancient warfare, this should not be a battle. It should be an execution. But before this sets, the Persian Empire will begin to collapse. Darius will abandon the field. Alexander will stand on the edge of becoming king of Asia. So how did an army that should have been crushed before noon destroy an empire before sunset? To understand Gaugamela, you first have to understand Alexander. Alexander did not fight wars cautiously. He fought as if every battlefield was the last one he would ever see. In 334 BC, he crossed into Asia with roughly 35,000 men. He did not come to negotiate. He did not come to test Persian strength. He came to punish Persia for its old invasions of Greece and to prove that Macedonia now ruled the battlefield. At the Granicus River, he wasted no time. He led from the front, driving his cavalry directly into Persian forces. In the chaos, he nearly died when a weapon split his helmet. But Alexander survived, and Persia broke. 1 year later at Issus, Darius himself arrived to stop him. This time the Persian king had numbers on his side, but the battlefield was narrow, and the size of the Persian army became almost useless. Alexander saw the one thing that mattered. Darius. He charged straight toward him, and the King of Kings ran. Darius left behind his family, his treasure, his army, his authority. Alexander had done more than win a battle. He had shown the world that the Persian king could be made to flee. After Issus, the balance of power began to shift. Tyre resisted Alexander, and after 7 brutal months he destroyed its resistance. Egypt did not resist at all. They welcomed him and crowned him pharaoh. Every victory followed the same pattern. Fast, personal, decisive, final, but Darius was still alive. And while Alexander marched from victory to victory, Darius watched, learned, and waited. By 331 BC, there was no more room for delay this time. Darius would choose the battlefield himself. Not a river crossing, not a narrow pass, not broken terrain. He chose a wide, flat, open plain near Gaugamela. A place where Persian cavalry could move freely. A place where chariots could charge without obstruction. A place where numbers could finally become decisive. Darius believed Alexander's luck had reached its end. One reckless charge would not save him here. But Alexander believed something very different. He believed wars were not won by killing every man in an army. They were won by finding the king and breaking him at Gaugamela. That idea would require him to risk everything. And Alexander was ready. September 30th, the night before the battle. In the Persian camp, confidence was everywhere. Darius had the ground. He had the numbers, he had the weapons, he had the plan. His chariots would smash open the Macedonian line. His cavalry would crush both flanks. Once Alexander was exposed, the weight of the empire would close around him and finish the work. In the Macedonian camp, some officers urged Alexander to attack at night. Strike first, use darkness, avoid the trap. Alexander refused. He would not steal victory in the dark. He wanted Darius to see him coming. He wanted Persia to watch its king fail in daylight. That night, Alexander walked the field. He studied the ground Darius had prepared. He looked at the open space, the level terrain, the wide plain designed for Persian strength. And somewhere in that darkness, he saw it, the place where the empire would break. October 1st, dawn, the Persian army stood like a wall across the earth. This was more than an army. It was an empire made visible. Men from Babylon, Media, Syria, Bactria, Scythia, and India had been pulled into one enormous host. They spoke different languages. They came from different lands. Some had ridden horses since childhood. Others had marched from distant cities to stand beneath the command of the King of Kings. At the front waited 200 scythed chariots, their wheel blades designed to tear through ranks of infantry. Behind them stood war elephants from India, living engines of fear, meant to crush formations and shatter courage before spear ever met shield. At the center sat Darius III, watching the battlefield he had chosen with his own eyes. On the Persian left stood Bessus, commanding elite Bactrian and Scythian cavalry, fast aggressive horsemen positioned to overwhelm Alexander's right. On the Persian right stood Mazaeus, leading cavalry from Syria and Mesopotamia, ready to strike Parmenian's flank and pin the Macedonian left. This was imperial power at full strength, an army built to end a war in one day. Then there was the Macedonian line, smaller, tighter, far more disciplined. There was no room for error. At the center stood the phalanx, 31,000 heavy infantry, shoulder to shoulder, gripping 18-foot sarissas that formed a deadly wall of bronze and wood. Behind and around them moved 9,000 light troops, peltasts, archers, and shock infantry trained to screen the line, disrupt chariots, and strike wherever the heavy phalanx could not turn quickly enough. On the wings stood 7,000 cavalry. On the right, Alexander himself commanded the strongest mounted force. With the companion cavalry, at its heart his personal hammer blow, waiting for the decisive moment. On the left, Parmenion held the defensive flank with Thessalian and allied Greek cavalry, supported by part of the phalanx. His job was simple and terrifying. Hold long enough for Alexander to win the battle somewhere else. Alexander rode before his men. He looked at the Persian host. Then he looked back at the Macedonians who had followed him across rivers, deserts, cities, and kingdoms. He spoke not like a distant king, but like a man who expected to bleed beside them. Men of Macedon, look before you. They fight because they are ordered to fight. They fight for gold, for fear, for a king who stands behind them. But you fight because this ground is yours to hold. Behind us is Greece, and there is no road home unless we carve it through this field. Ahead stands a king who believes numbers decide the fate of men today. Show him what discipline decides. Hold the line. Watch me where I ride. Follow if I fall. Keep going. Better to die here as free men than live knowing fear. Chose our fate. For a moment, nothing moved, then the Macedonian line erupted. Shields thundered. Spears struck bronze. Men shouted until the sound rolled across the plain. It was not celebration, it was commitment. The Persians were so vast that their wings stretched far beyond the Macedonian flanks. Encirclement was not a risk, it was Darius' entire plan. Alexander understood that if he stood still, he would be swallowed, so he moved first, but not forward. Instead of marching straight into the center of Darius' prepared killing ground. Alexander ordered his entire line to drift slowly to the right. To the Persians, it looked dangerous, maybe even foolish. The Macedonians seemed to be exposing themselves. Sliding away from the ground, Darius had prepared, stretching their formation under the eyes of a much larger army. But Bessus saw the danger immediately. Alexander was not simply moving right. He was trying to pull the Persian line out of position. If Alexander kept drifting, he might escape the prepared ground entirely and force the Persians to fight where their chariots would lose their advantage. Bessus could not allow that. So he extended his cavalry outward, matching Alexander, movement more and more. Persian horsemen shifted to the flank, stretching the Persian left farther and farther across the plain. And with every step, something began to happen. In the Persian center, it thinned. The one place Darius could not afford to weaken was beginning to weaken. The king. Alexander kept moving. Bessus had to choose. Either allow Alexander to slip away from the prepared ground, or attack. He attacked. Persian cavalry surged forward against the Macedonian right. The trap had been set, and Bessus had ridden straight into it. With the Persian left fully engaged, Darius believed the moment had arrived. He released the chariots. 200 scythed chariots thundered across the plain, blades flashing from their wheels, horses screaming as they charged toward the Macedonian line. Behind them came the elephants, massive and terrifying, shaking the earth beneath their weight. For an ordinary army, this might have been enough. The sight alone could break men, but the Macedonians did not panic. The phalanx opened. Lanes appeared inside the formation. The chariots rushed forward, expecting flesh and shields. Instead, they found empty corridors. Macedonian light troops hurled missiles at the drivers, cut down horses, and let the machines race harmlessly through the gaps. The chariots that were supposed to destroy the line passed through it without finding a target. Then came the elephants. Skirmishers harassed them. Spears blinded and confused them. The great animals staggered, turned, and stumbled into openings where the Macedonian ranks closed around them. Darius' first great gamble collapsed in moments, but the battle was far from over. On the opposite flank, Mesoeus launched a brutal attack against Parmenion. Persian cavalry slammed into the Macedonian left, trying to break through and roll up the entire line. Parmenion fought desperately. His men were not attacking. They were surviving. At the center, Darius saw the battlefield descending into chaos and committed more of his army. Persian infantry surged forward by the tens of thousands. A massive rolling wall of shields and spears driving toward the Macedonian center. Now the Persian army was fully committed. Cavalry on the flanks. Chariots spent. Elephants broken. Infantry advancing. Reserves drawn in. Darius had placed every piece on the board, and that was exactly what Alexander had been waiting for. With Bessus locked in combat and Persian infantry pulled forward, a weakness opened in the Persian left center. It was not large. It was not obvious to most men. But to Alexander it was everything. A seam had appeared, order had frayed, the path to Darius was exposed. Alexander saw it instantly. He gathered the companion cavalry into a spearhead formation, wheeled left, and drove straight toward the Persian center. Not toward the army, toward the king. The Macedonian wedge smashed into the gap. The fighting suddenly changed. This was no longer a distant clash of formations. This was violence closing around Darius himself. Alexander cut through guards and pressed forward. Step by step, horse by horse, blade by blade, the King of Kings could see him now. Darius prepared to stand, then fear reached him for the second time in his life. Darius turned his chariot away from Alexander and ran. The moment he fled, the Persian center began to die. Orders stopped moving. Units lost direction. Men who had been fighting for an empire suddenly looked behind them and saw their king abandoning the field. What had been an army became a crowd. Bessus pulled back. Other units began to dissolve. The enormous Persian host, built to crush Macedonia in a single day, lost the one thing holding it together, near its center. Alexander saw the chance and began to pursue Darius. But then a message reached him. Parmenion was in danger, on the left flank. Mesoeus did not yet know Darius had fled. His cavalry was still pressing hard, and the Macedonian left was close to breaking. Alexander faced a choice. Chase Darius and possibly end the war in that moment, or turn back and save his army. Many conquerors would have kept riding. Alexander turned back. He rode to reinforce Parmenion, stabilize the left flank, and only then did the battle truly end. Darius escaped, but his empire did not. Gaugamela was over. The Persian Empire had lost its center of gravity. Before that day, Persia was still a superpower. Its satraps still controlled armies, cities, wealth, manpower, and roads. Darius, flawed as he was, still held the title of king. After Gaugamela, that structure began to unravel. Alexander did not conquer Persia city by city. He shattered its command in a single afternoon. But the war was not completely finished. Darius still lived, and as long as the King of Kings remained alive, resistance could still gather around his name. So Alexander pushed east. He was not simply chasing territory anymore. He was chasing legitimacy. That pursuit would lead him into mountains, narrow passes, and one of the most dangerous moments of his entire campaign. In 330 BC, a Persian force made its final stand at a place designed to do what Gaugamela could not: stop Alexander. This was the Battle of the Persian Gate. The empire's last hope waited there in ambush, and there among cliffs and narrow roads, Alexander would come closer to defeat than at any point in his campaign. Watch the Battle of the Persian Gate now.